Welcome to the CXO and CHRO Walk into a Bar, where we share insights at the intersection of talent and revenue. Dive into a unique narrative with our hosts, Michelle Strasburger, the insightful CHRO, and Dominique Sanfleur, the visionary CXO. Together, they bring dynamic perspectives that ignite thought-provoking dialogue from the C-suite. Each week, join us for electrifying sessions that confront the very challenges modern CXOs navigate in today's fast-paced business landscape. When split-second decisions loom, must it be talent or revenue that takes the hit? Or is there a harmonious crossroad where both can thrive? Can we blur the lines between talent and revenue? In every episode, we provide executive leaders with 3 strategic takeaways, transformative insights that will propel you to master the delicate balance between people and profit. It's not about winners or losers, but crafting an environment where everyone triumphs. Tune in and step closer to redefining executive success.
Hey.
We are live. It's Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. We have a special guest today. I'm very excited. We will introduce him in 1 minute. I am Michelle Strasburger. I'm the CEO of HR Rebooted. I'm a fractional CHRO. I work with CEOs of fast-growing companies to help them build intentional cultures so they can scale their organizations without losing their soul.
And I'm Dominique St. Fleur, CEO of Intramark. We create a data layer on culture to help organizations identify and get ahead of hidden risks like productivity gaps and unwanted turnover that derail goals.
And I'm very excited today to welcome Bob Kawabe to our call. Bob has been a very special friend to both Dominique and I over the last couple of years, and it's an honor and a pleasure to have him here. So welcome, Bob.
Welcome, Bob.
Hey, thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Dom. Yeah, it's to just give you a quick insight about myself. I'm Bob Kawabe. I am the founder and CEO of the Kawabe Advisory Group. And as far as our company is concerned, we're a virtual family office firm specializing in helping successful, self-made, family-oriented business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives to keep together what they put together, right? So it's beyond just their assets. It's about helping them to pass down the legacy. So when we talk about legacy, beyond the assets, we're talking about things like their expertise, the knowledge, the experience, the values, the goals they may have of how they want to make a difference for the world. So that's what I'm talking about. However, Michelle and Dom, what I'm known for really is helping those very people to live what we call their sole purpose in life. Why are they here on this earth? What is it they want to accomplish before they leave, right? And to live what we call their amazing life of significance. So this is when they get to spend time with the people they care about, that they love, doing the things they love to do, what they're passionate about, and most importantly, being able to make an impact in the lives of others and for the world at large. So this is all going to connect to everything we're going to talk about today, because that's part of the leadership, right? So, I know our title today is about talent or the people, right? So
Absolutely.
I'm going to let you guys take it from here. And so let's go.
I love that. So we are talking about recruiting talent or people. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and actually from a perspective of, if I was just talking to you for the first time, and let's say you were interviewing me, or we were just networking, and you asked the question of, when you are recruiting people, do you pick them based on talent, or do you pick them based on people? And how would I respond? If my gut reaction was just to respond, I would probably pick one.
All right.
Then myself would say, no, wait, just hold on a second and ask for the definition. So I think that's a good place to start.
Okay.
How do you define the difference between talent and people?
Okay. Ultimately speaking, we want to have both, right? We want to have the talent and the people. But when I say people, okay, I'm not just talking about people in general, but people that's aligned with you. Okay? Are they aligned with us? Are you aligned with the company? Because you can have a lot of talent, but if they're not aligned, guess what's going to happen? They're going to go off the track. Okay? Alignment also means, do they share the similar core values that we have? Because values are super, super important, because that's what you stand for. That's what you're going to build your culture on. That's what you're going to build your environment on. Okay. Now, I'm also a coach, not just a business coach, but I coach athletics for over 20 years. And I'll tell you this right now. If a kid wants to become good at what they do, I'll pick their attitude over talent all day long. Because talent is only going to take them so far. But their attitude will pass beyond that talent, right? Providing you give them the opportunity to do so. So you wanted to know what's the difference? That's the difference.
So I'm feeling
in my sorry, Dom. I believe that in my HR career, I will hire HR professionals based on attitude and behavior over skill set any day, because I can teach them all HR stuff.
Yeah, right. Because being a leader, right? I consider myself a leader, but first thing you got to do is you got to learn to lead yourself first. Does it make sense? Unless I walk my talk, unless I lead myself, how can you expect someone to lead or follow your lead? So I even learned from my personal assistant from like 25 years ago. Okay. I always had a hard time finding people. Because why? I can do better, right? You know that attitude, I can do better. Okay. And that's something I had to learn too. And when I was hiring her, she didn't have the quite skills that I wanted. But she told me, but you know one thing I have, Bob? I'm willing to learn. I have the attitude. I may not have the skill, but I have the attitude. That really resonated with me at that point. Bang, you hired, right? On the spot. And sure enough, she was with me for about 15 years. And that proved to be true. So what I'm saying is, even as a leader, right, you can always learn from other people that you might be supervising. And my whole thing is, I want them to be a leader too. We all should be a leader, not just one person. Because leadership is created by the culture. The leadership is created by the environment. So by providing opportunity for others to lead as well, imagine the type of company that you can create as a result of it.
Absolutely. And so, Bob, the story that you gave with your assistant is an interesting one, right? Because how I'm just putting myself in a skeptical hiring manager's shoes, right? Like I'm sitting across a candidate, and I need to determine through the interview process, through the evaluation process, whether this person is the right person, irrespective of the talent, right? Do they have the right alignment, values, and attitude?
Right.
If I ask them explicitly, what's probably going to happen is they're going to say yes, right? Very few candidates will say, no, I don't have a great attitude, right? How do you think about sussing that out, on the front end? How do we, and there's probably not a perfect answer, but how do we get that right? Your assistant, you took a leap of faith on her. We may not be in the, other organizations and other managers may not be in the position to take that leap of faith, because unwinding that process is extremely expensive if we get it wrong. How do we think about that?
So I guess that's where the questions come in, right? Give them an example. In other words, give them an example of what would they do under certain circumstance or what kind of situations. And you know what? That's going to tell a lot about people. They might be able to camouflage a few questions, but if you bombard them with all different questions, right, they're not going to be able to get it right on each one of them. But also, though, right, Dom, when I interview, by the way, I don't do much of that anymore because I use outside consultants like you guys, okay? But the point is, have a conversation with people, man. I want them to be comfortable. I want them to open up to me. I don't want to interview someone. I want to have a conversation, because the only way you're going to be able to find an alignment is by having a casual conversation, in my opinion. Because people know they've been interviewed. So when you ask interview questions, well, they're kind of doing their best to answer the questions correctly. But if you're just having conversation, just talking to them, just like getting to know them, that really open up a different side of that person too, which could be helpful as well, because now you get to know them as a person. And to me, that's valuable.
I think there is a piece of that, like getting to know them and knowing them authentically. We had a candidate for a sales role when I was at Axis, and we had them do a presentation. And this poor gentleman came in, and he had a brand new tie, and he forgot his shirt. He flew in for this, right? Flew in the night before, came in 8 in the morning for a presentation, interviewed with everybody. And what he did was he had his t-shirt and his blazer, and he laid his tie on the table of the presentation and explained what happened. And then he talked to everybody and said, I will do whatever it takes to work here. I will mop the floors. I will do all these things. And the leader was like, man, is this guy desperate? But we got to see his authentic self of like, he is at his lowest low, right? He really messed up. Right. He forgot his shirt, but he laid it out there authentically and said, look, guys, I messed up, but I'm still going to do this, and I'm going to do it well, even though I have a white t-shirt and a blazer and a tie on the table. And we got to know him as a person because of that. Right. He kind of put it all out there, and he got the job, and he was one of the best salespersons we had. And he was willing to do whatever it took to get the job done in a good way, get the job done.
Okay. Sorry. What I was going to say was, that also, not only are you getting to know him, but also shows you the flip side, of how does he handle failures? How does he handle mistakes? Because I always coach people to say, you do not fail until you quit. When you quit, you fail. But mistakes are meant to be, really. We all make mistakes. But it's how do we respond to that? Right. And your example is a perfect example of a guy who's responding to the mistake. Guess what? He owned it. He owned his mistakes.
Yep. And that's not a salesperson, right? Like just roll with
it. And Michelle, that's huge. That's huge that he's now been accountable for his mistakes, right? Again, we talk about people. That's the kind of quality I'm looking for. That's value, really. That's core values that this guy had. So that's a perfect example of when I talk about people, what are you looking at?
And I think, Michelle, I think that example was really good because you got to see a variety, Bob, to your point, you got to see how someone handles mistakes, right? That's super valuable to see that character, right? What does that character look like? And that was a very great real way to let that character come through rather than just what they had to say, what they did, right? Under pressure. But I also, in that example, what I picked up from it was great problem solving skills, right? Yes. To bring the tie and lay it on the table, because you could have just showed up with a t-shirt or showed up with as little evidence as possible that an issue went wrong. And it could have came off as an excuse, but you showed that you were prepared, right? And that indeed a mistake happened, right? So you had some evidence, you put something on the table that helped solve the problem as much as possible, right? And just that thinking, the thinking to bring the tie and lay it on the table symbolically was I can only imagine how comfortable I would be putting someone like that in front of a client, right? Where if something were to go wrong, they symbolically, so I really like that, that as well. So what came to my mind as well is, wouldn't it be great to simulate, a mistake or a high pressure situation like that, ahead of time? I think that was a gift for your organization, Michelle, to see that. It'd be great to put every candidate through, not in a very mean way, but it'd be great to put every candidate through that to see what happens, right? How does each candidate handle mistakes? It'll be great if that was part of the interview process, if you could simulate that somehow. But you got a great gift with that one. So I think there's several really cool things that came out from that.
As you're talking, Dom, another thing I thought about, and again, right, this is how you can value people. Right. When I say value, meaning, evaluate people. And that is, what he said when he made the mistake. Right? He did not make an excuse. You know what I'm saying? because no offense to a lot of people, but they make a bunch of excuses why they couldn't do something, right? Whereas your audience that's listening to this, they don't care about what happened. What they care about is what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Michelle, this guy owned it. He didn't make any excuses. He said he messed up. Okay? But this is demonstrate I'll do whatever it takes. I mean,
So
what attitude can you ask for, really?
Right.
absolutely. This brings a number of other questions for me that I have for you, Bob. One is, we touched on the difference between, people and talent, right? Talent is, can I technically do the job today, right? Can I type in Excel and do spreadsheets or something, whatever it may be, versus recruiting the person is, do they have the right attitude and alignment so that I can put them in a position to grow, right? In the organization in the way that's productive for the organization. And so we're exploring ways where we could kind of suss that out during the interview process or, even after. I'd like to kind of tackle two things is, one, what are the benefits of getting this right? Like, what does the benefits look like? And, Bob, you had a concept of team spirit, how does that relate with team spirit and what does the benefits look like in general? For an organization that gets this right.
All right. Okay. So I'm sure, a lot of your audience may have heard a guy named by Jim Collins. Okay. He's a guy who wrote a book called Good to Great. And if you have not heard of it, that's a suggested read. Okay. A lot of great stuff in there. So the concept of the right people, right, I learned from Jim. So he's talking about having the right people and putting them in the right seat. So in other words, you got to have the right people first, though. From there, as you mentioned, Dom, you figure out their skill sets, what their talent are, and put them in a correct seat. So in other words, Dom, you and I talk about it, we kind of joke about it. You and I are total opposites, man. Right? Okay, right? I'm more of a, you're a people person too, but I'm more like, the high level looking things, looking from top to bottom kind of stuff. And then I'm a big picture guy. Whereas you, man, you're very methodical, Okay. So Dom, if you put me in an admin position, I'll go nuts. You know what I mean? That's not my talent. Okay.
Me too.
You put me in sales, to put me with people. Yes, that's my zone. Okay. So I feel that leaders need to identify what that is. So find the right people. Yeah. But now I got to put them in the right seat. Okay. Because once you do that, I tell you what, man, they're going to succeed in that because they're happy. They're passionate. They get to do what they love to do. Right. So the team spirit is when it comes where everyone on the team are eager to be part of that team because of the environment they get to work in.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, you're in human resource, okay? Bottom line is, a lot of people think, well, people want to work because they get paid a lot of money. Well, I think money is important to a certain point, right? But why does people change jobs a lot of times? They're not changing jobs to make more money, do they? As long as their needs are met. Okay. Now that could definitely be enticement, but I don't think they will just leave strictly just for money.
Mm-hmm. No.
So what if you create the team spirit I just talked to you about? Create an environment for the company. So, a lot of times we talk about serving clients. Okay. As leaders, why not serve the people that work for us? Why not serve the people that's on our team? Right? We talk about the alignment. Guess what? We need to be aligned with them as well, right? We're all going to be aligned together. We need to be aligned with the clients too. We need to be aligned with the consultants too. So think about where this is going. Imagine if every bit of your company structure is aligned the way we're talking about. All of a sudden, everyone wants to be part of the team now because there's such a harmony that's going on, right? Not to mention the passion they get to do because they're doing what they love to do. Imagine how the company is going to grow because of that. But not growing for sake of growing, but growing together with the people you have. So we all benefit.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what team spirit is done.
Yeah.
I
We use predictive index, and what I love about predictive index is it tells you your work-related behaviors and your motivating needs. And it's exactly that, right? The same thing of putting people in the right seat. And so if you can put somebody in a job that feeds their motivating needs, you're filling their bucket and you're recharging their battery. So they leave at the end of the day saying, yes, I had a great day.
Right.
But if you're putting them in a job that like is something it's not filling their bucket, it's pulling from their bucket, it's draining their battery, it's making them tired. They could probably do it, right? Like you could probably do the administrative job. You wouldn't like it, but you would do it, right? It would drain your battery. And so at the end of the day, you're exhausted and you need to recharge. And that's where we start to see burnout and stress in people. And we start to see fatigue, and then they leave jobs.
Yeah.
So, right, to your point, like, wouldn't it be great if we had everybody in the right seat and we were just filling their buckets every day? And of course, there's pieces of jobs that people don't enjoy, right? But if we could get the majority of their job filling their bucket, and I think with AI, we can start to move the stuff they don't like into AI and get that out of there, but filling their bucket in the other ways, and leaders helping to really hone in on like what motivates people and feeding that. I love that.
And I like the two-way street concept, right? We often, and Bob, you touched on something that is, a focus of mine too, right? Treating the employee as the customer as well, right? Yes. Organizations often focus on creating value for the customer, catering to the customer, understanding customer needs. Your primary customer as an organization, as a leader, are your employees, and understanding what that customer needs, and getting very specific. If we put that level of effort in understanding, the people that deliver the value for us as the people that we're delivering value to, I think you'd complete that chain, for value creation. So I really like that as well. In addition to that, the two-way street concept.
Yeah. So Dom, you're a recruiter, right? Kind of recruit those kind of people for the company, correct? So the way I look at it is this. Let's talk about leadership for a second, if that's okay. Leadership is a buzzword for a lot of people, but leadership comes when you walk your talk. So in other words, I learned to lead by example. See, I learned this from coaching athletics. All right? How can I ask my players to do something if I'm not doing it myself? Right? I mean, I still stay in shape today, okay? Because I need to be accountable to myself first. Because I'm asking my players to run. By the way, I don't really coach physically like I used to. I still coach my son because, he's on his pro journey right now. But the point is, how can I ask someone to do something if I'm not doing it myself? So the first person we must lead is ourselves. Okay? We got to be accountable for ourselves. By the way, today, before this meeting, I ran 4 miles, right? I hate running, guys. I don't like run. But I run, okay? And I run longer too sometimes. And so people ask me, well, why do you run? No, nobody's going to know you didn't run. But I said, I know. I know that I didn't do it. So in other words, finishing the run. If I say I'm going to run 4, 5, 6 or 8, whatever, finishing it, right? People say, well, you get tired, just walk. Well, guess what? I know, and I can't do that. So to me, accountability starts with ourselves. So being a great leader means we have to walk our talk in everything that we do, right? And sometimes there's a word called loyalty, guys. People think loyalty is about how others might be loyal to you. In our definition, loyalty is to ourselves first. That means facing the truth. Facing the truth. Look at ourselves in the mirror and face the truth. By the way, that's like the most difficult thing I have to do. Very, very difficult to admit your own guilt.
It's hard.
Right? we have this little thing called ego sometimes, right? You know what I mean? But that's maturity, right? When you can do that. And when you begin to be loyal to yourself, now you can be loyal to others and be able to lead others. So to me, leadership is all that. So imagine if each one of the employees are leader on their own right. Being the primary leader, I don't even have to worry about anything, right? Remember earlier I talked about having the freedom to live your amazing life with significance is what we help our clients to do. Guess what? That starts with the structure of the company, creating that environment and having everyone that's working for them to be accountable, right? Being the leader. And accountability is something they do when no one's watching.
Mm-hmm.
That's my definition. So imagine the type of culture and a company can create when you have leader in every single position. But it starts at the top.
I totally agree. If, as I'm thinking through this, right, and an organization's going through the recruiting process, the hiring process, we know this is tough. We know we have some, I want to discuss a little bit the hows, right, and kind of bring the hows together. We have a few elements where asking behavioral questions is going to be helpful. Hopefully we get lucky and the candidate makes a mistake and we can observe that. But, we have a few tools where we can try and get this right. If you had to change one thing about the interview or recruiting process or the recruiting and the interviewing process, if you had to change one thing, Bob, to help us get this right, what would it be?
As I mentioned already before, right? Make them feel comfortable. It's not, I understand that you are recruiting. I understand all that stuff, but make them feel comfortable so that not only are we interviewing them, but they can also interview us. So, because a lot of times if they're nervous about, just interview questions and stuff, they're just thinking about us. So they're going to do whatever is right to satisfy what we might be asking. But what if you could have an opportunity where they could ask us questions, right, from comfort standpoint, where it becomes like a conversation. So when you begin to do that, as you mentioned earlier too, Dom, we can dig in deeper to really get to know them for who they are. And that's something I want to mention. This is super important. People act differently in a business situation versus personal situation in most cases that I see. Why? Michelle, are we the same person?
Yeah.
Aren't you Michelle Strasburger, the mom, right? The wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
As well as CEO of your own business, right? Of your company. Same thing with Dom. So why does people act differently? I feel that transparency is very important if you really want to create the kind of culture I'm talking about. Hey, with me, what you see is what you get, right? I don't care. I don't care if I'm talking to whoever, because all of us are the same. No one's better than the other, right? But it's about connecting with the people that you're aligned with. You're not going to satisfy everybody, okay? You're not going to be aligned with everybody, but that's okay. We want to find the people that we could be aligned with, that they could be aligned with us. Yeah, because we're not here to satisfy everybody, but we want to make an impact and difference for the people that's connected with us that we can make an impact for. So, to answer your question, sorry for going around long ways on this, but just allow them to be free. Allow them to be who they are as a person, not as an interviewee or someone that's looking for a job or position. And it shouldn't be a job, man. I think that's the wrong mindset, looking for a job. Help them to find an opportunity where they could grow. Because I think that's another thing I would change. Share with them the opportunity they have with the company that's with the company once they get the opportunity to join, because people want purpose, right? They want to grow. They don't want to be stuck in what they do. But if you give them the vision of where it can be, oh my gosh, they're gonna want to be part of that.
I like that. Love it.
I have a friend who's a recruiter, one of the best recruiters I've ever worked with. She worked with me at Emerson Ecologics, and she would actually do homework before meeting the candidate, even for our phone screen, and see if they had dogs or if they lived in a certain area, and so, to see what they had in common. So she would start the call with that. I see you have dogs. I love dogs, just to get them comfortable and like build that initial connection with them.
Yeah. But you know what else she's doing by doing that? She's showing the candidates that she cares about them.
Yeah.
And that's huge, right? I mean, don't we all want to be careful? Right? We want to care for others, but we also want to be careful. Say, hey, wow, right? That's how you
great recruiter.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think she's she's fantastic by doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right, we are at time. So one more thing you want to share, you want to make sure you don't forget to say before we say goodbye.
Okay, sure. I'm a inspirationist. Okay, I do a lot of inspirational speaking, do all that kind of stuff. So one thing I want to leave the audience with is this: if you want anything in life, okay, as long as you have the burning desire and have the willingness to make things happen, understand that anything is possible. And I mean, anything in life is possible. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So with that, I want to say thanks, you guys, and aloha.
Aloha, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. You are an inspiration. I always enjoy speaking with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Likewise.
Yeah, had a great time.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Michelle.
You've just experienced another episode of The CXO and CHRO Walk into a Bar, where we share insights at the intersection of talent and revenue. Thank you for joining us. Please join us next week at noon Eastern for more strategic content to help you scale your business. You can follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube for additional content or episodes you may have missed. The links will be in the comments section. If you'd like more information or to schedule time with Michelle or Dominique, follow the link in the comments section to book time on their calendar. Until next week, cheers.